Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Local news, national news, even feel-good news, delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
All right, we're going to set some ground rules for today's show. We will not be discussing rain showers. We're not going to talk about fried chicken. We're not going to talk about any of Laurel's journal subscriptions. And we're not going to talk about any of my college band musical days. Those are the ground rules for today. If you heard yesterday's show, you know why we have had to establish the ground rules for today's show.
Joe, my man, two things.
Yes, all right.
Boeing, Skunk Works.
Yep.
Skunk Works is a part of the government's secret aircraft.
Yep.
Of course he's going to die. And two, in the payroll payout, if they call you, does it say WDBO or does it say Cox Media? I need to pull over in order to answer the phone. I have zero tolerance at my job. I need your help.
So I will tell you that I have never been on the receiving end of the payroll payout contest. So I don't know exactly what the caller ID says, but it probably says Cox Media Group. That would be my best bet for you, Cox Media Group. And all I can say is when we do the contest, and in this case at 5 o'clock, if your phone rings, and look, I get it. I hate all of those unsolicited phone calls as much as you do and everybody else does. I don't answer any phone calls. Even if the caller ID says who it is and I know who it is, odds are real good I'm still not going to answer it. I'm going to wait for it to go to voicemail, and then I'll decide whether or not I'm going to call them back. So I get it. I don't like talking on the phone. It is one of the worst things in life, is having to have a phone conversation with anybody for any reason. But if you're entering the contest, I would answer your phone no matter what. If the phone rings between, say, and Laurel, what would you guess here? Maybe 15 minutes after the hour to 40 minutes after the hour?
Yeah, I think that's a good guess.
Somewhere in that window is when the phone call is typically made. It's usually made on the... So we stop letting people enter at 15, right? 15 after the hour.
Yeah, so you have 15 minutes from the top of the hour to 15 after to get that word in.
Right, so it's 5:08 now. What is the word this hour?
Heat.
HEAT, heat.
Yep.
And so you've got another 7 minutes to enter that word in the WDBO app. Just tap the payroll payout button. And then at 5:15, we close the door on any new entries. And that is when we let the computer generate a winner and we call. And I will tell you that this happens pretty much every contest. We call, and if someone does not answer the phone, we move on to the next computer-generated phone number. So if you're not answering your phone, you're losing out. We don't leave a message. We don't leave a message and say, hey, it's WDBO. You would have won, but you didn't answer your phone. Ding dong. We don't do that at all. We'll just hang up and move on to the next person. We have to make sure that somebody actually answers the phone, which is why we're always adamant about saying you've got to make sure you answer your phone. I always feel so bad because it literally happens like every contest. I always feel so bad for the people that make the effort to enter the contest, and their $1,000 is calling them on the phone, and due to their reluctance to answer a phone call that they don't know, or maybe they have forgotten that they've entered into a contest, but people are leaving $1,000 on the table because they didn't answer their phone. And I think that's unfortunate. That's regrettable. So make sure you answer your phone and, deal with whoever it is, whether it's a bill collector or some sort of scam or some sort of solicitation or your mom or whatever that you don't want to talk to. I get it. But seriously, you should answer your phone. All right. You got to hear this audio. And for the Trump faithful, I think you're going to really appreciate this. What you're really going to appreciate is that there is a congressional investigation that is going on right now into whether or not the Biden administration is in collusion with Trump political prosecutors. So with all these different legal cases that are going on right now, both criminal and civil cases against Donald Trump, there is an investigation in the Congress about whether or not it is the Biden White House that is manipulating this and is colluding with local prosecutors like Alvin Bragg, Manhattan's DA, and George Soros endorsed prosecutor Alvin Bragg, whether or not they've been coordinating with the Biden White House. So what you're going to hear here happened today, and what you're going to hear a testimony from a dude named Mark Pomerantz. And Mark Pomerantz, until recently, was the chief prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office under Alvin Bragg, the dude who's prosecuting Donald Trump. And Mark Pomerantz is being asked a series of questions from Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. And time after time, Pomerantz pleads the fifth. It's 1 minute and 20 seconds. This is what you're going to be committed to. 1 minute and 20 seconds. Take a listen to this.
Under advice of counsel, I'm not going to answer that question, sir. Privilege against self-incrimination.
And did you knowingly break any laws when investigating President Trump?
Objection. Same response.
Did you break any laws when you worked at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection. Same response.
Ms. Pomerantz, did you violate any person's constitutional rights when you worked on the Trump investigation?
Objection.
So just so I don't know how well this is coming through on your radio, so you can understand what's happening here. So the questions are being asked by Matt Gaetz. Then you hear a woman say objection. That is the attorney for Pomerantz. And then Pomerantz is saying same answer, same answer, same answer. And that answer is, I refuse to answer the question for fear of, because of my Fifth Amendment rights of avoiding self-incrimination.
I have the same response to your question.
Mr. Pomerantz, did you violate any person's constitutional rights while you worked at the Manhattan DA's office?
Objection. Same answer.
Did you misuse any federal funds while investigating President Trump?
Same response.
Did you misuse any federal funds while you were working in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Same response.
And did you violate any New York State bar rules while you were investigating President Trump?
Objection. Same response.
Did you violate any New York State bar rules while you were working in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection. Same response.
And did you violate any canons of legal ethics when you were investigating President Trump?
Objection. Same response.
Did you ever violate any canons of legal ethics while you worked at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office?
Objection. The same response.
Now, I would be willing to bet $10,000 of Laurel's money that you will not see this testimony on the network news tonight. You're not going to see it on ABC World News tonight. You're not going to see it on NBC News with Lester Holt. You're not going to see it on CBS News with that woman. I honestly don't know what her name is. I think that this is a blockbuster testimony here. That Mark Pomerantz pleads the fifth for all the questions asked of him by Matt Gaetz about whether or not he broke any laws. That would seem a simple one. And for a guy who is a lawyer, former prosecutor Mark Pomerantz in the Manhattan DA's office, you would think that you would know, A, the law, and B, not to break it. That should be a simple answer. No, of course I haven't broken the law. But he pleads the fifth on every single one of those. And I haven't heard this today anywhere. And I frankly, I've been listening. I've been listening, to conservative talk radio. And I've not heard this. And I guarantee you that you will not see it on the network news tonight. But I wanted our listeners to hear this, that Donald Trump, love him or hate him, and I'm right there in the middle of loving him and hating him, Donald Trump is getting railroaded by the Biden administration with all these bogus, trumped-up charges. There's got to be a better word I can use besides trumped up, because trumped up could be confusing since we're talking about Donald Trump. But it's just so frustrating. This is so, and I don't watch any cable news ever. Never, ever, ever. I don't watch any cable news at all. I don't watch Fox. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch MSNBC. I don't watch any of the rest of it. Because I try to live a proportional life. And I don't want to get over inundated with too much political talk. And it just drives me, it makes my blood pressure go up. And honestly, that would be my advice for everybody. I don't want to get off topic, but my advice for everybody would be have a proportional life. Don't sit in front of the TV for 24 hours a day watching Fox News or CNN or whatever. But this is a huge story. And it just is, it blows my mind at how few people are gonna hear this, are gonna see this guy pleading the fifth time and time and time again, and it just blows my mind. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. That's just one of the things that happened today. It's another busy news day. We're gonna have all the headlines, all the stories that you missed while you were at work today. That's coming up next. Stay with us here. You're listening to The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now, the three big things you need to know. Powered by Hard Rock Bet.
3. The NBA playoffs feature 2 Game 6s tonight. First, the Milwaukee Bucks will look to fight off elimination when they play the Indiana Pacers. Then the New York Knicks will attempt to knock out the 76ers in Philadelphia. 2. The FDA says cottage cheese and sour cream are still safe to eat after the bird flu was found in dairy cows. The agency said that it conducted tests on nearly 300 pasteurized retail dairy products after traces of the virus were found last week in commercial milk supply, and found the products didn't contain live virus that could make people sick.
1.
A suspect's in custody nearly 1 year after a deadly shooting in Orange County. Orlando police arrested 33-year-old Jose Sanchez on charges of first-degree murder and armed burglary. He's accused of killing 46-year-old Pedro Batista Sanchez inside a home near Azalea Park last June.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Cash in on our 100th anniversary with the WDBO payroll payout. Your next chance at $1,000 happens tomorrow at 8 a.m. Listen for the keyword and then tap the payroll payout button in the WDBO app. It's our way of saying thank you for 100 incredible years.
All right, here's an answer to the question that we had about the payroll payouts.
Hi, Joe. I have won the payroll payout, and it doesn't say any name when the number pops up. So everybody make sure to answer your phones no matter what the number says.
That is good to know, and thank you very much for sharing that with us, and congratulations on winning $1,000.
Just clocked out? Let's rewind. Here's what you missed while you were at work.
Oh, more problems at Peloton. Peloton CEO Barry McCarthy is stepping down as the company prepares to cut about 15% of its workforce. The police arrest multiple protesters, move in to dismantle a pro-Palestinian anti-Israeli encampment at UCLA after an hours-long standoff. President Biden, 2 weeks after the protests began, President Biden delivers remarks on the college campus protest, saying America is a civil society and order must prevail. He says violent protest is not protected, peaceful protest is. Turkey, the country, not the bird. Turkey stops all exports and imports to and from Israel as of Thursday. A U.S. drone strike in Syria last year killed a civilian after confusing him for a terrorist leader, underscoring the Pentagon's struggle to avoid unintentional casualties. Wait a minute. Let me see if I understand this right. Last year, the Biden Pentagon made a drone strike on someone they thought was a terrorist leader, but we now know it was a civilian. President Biden and his Pentagon killed an innocent civilian because they thought he was a terrorist. The same President Biden who is lecturing the Israelis about civilians. Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure we had the facts right on that. Boeing, another Boeing whistleblower is dead, the second to die in the past 2 months. I'm going to have details about that coming up in just a couple of minutes. This guy died a gruesome death. The first guy died of suicide. He quote, shot himself in the head. This guy died of a very gruesome 2-week-long, what had to have been a painful death. I'll have details about that coming up in just a couple of minutes. Sony Pictures and Apollo Global Management make a $26 billion all-cash offer for Paramount. I'm sorry, did you hear that? Sony Pictures and Apollo Global Management. Do you guys know who Apollo Global Management is? Anybody?
They're our bosses.
Yes, that's the company that owns us. Thank you very much. The parent company of Cox Media Group, the private equity firm that bought us a couple years ago from the Cox family, is Apollo Global Management. So Sony Pictures and our parent's parent company, it's like our grandparent company, offered $26 billion in cash for Paramount. Well, there go our raises for this year, right? Don't drink while I'm saying that. You'll spit that out. Another headline here. A judge declares a mistrial after a jury deadlocks in a lawsuit filed by former Abu Ghraib prisoners against a military contractor. I haven't had to say that word in a long time. Abu Ghraib. At least 2,000 people have been arrested in anti-Israeli protests on U.S. campuses since April 18th. You know, and these are violent protesters. I wonder how many of them are going to see the inside of jail cells. I wonder how many of them are going to be sentenced to as lengthy of jail terms as the January 6th protesters have been sentenced.
Joe, 100% agree with you. What garbage.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like,
what?
Laurel, watch these movies with your husband, if you haven't already, before the remakes come out. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Lost Boys, and The Great Outdoors. What a crime to remake great movies. Breaks my heart.
Well, there was a hard pivot in that open mic. So
I appreciate it, though. Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I agree with you on all three of those movies. The Lost Boys. Have you not seen The Lost Boys?
I've seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles just recently. The last two I have not seen. No.
So it was The Great Divide?
The Great Outdoors.
The Great Outdoors. So that's with John Candy and Steve Martin, isn't it? If memory serves. I'm getting that mixed up with The Continental Divide. That's another movie. Anyhow, and The Lost Boys is really good. Kiefer Sutherland, when he was like a teenager, is just a great, great movie. What was was that it? I think that was it. Okay, coming up next here, I'm going to have details about this whistleblower, this Boeing whistleblower who died a gruesome and brutal death. Just terrible. They were going to have to amputate body parts from this guy. It was so bad. So whatever happened to him, he went from being a very healthy 45-year-old. I don't have my glasses on. He went from being a very healthy 45-year-old to a very dead man in a short 2-week window. And he was a whistleblower against Boeing. We'll talk about that next. Stay with us.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. In-depth segments on topics that matter to Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
I love your show every night. You're doing great, bud.
Joe, for these protesters to threaten them with expulsion or being thrown out of the school, it's not working because most of them are not students.
Right.
So they need to do something else. I vote for water cannons. I vote for checking their visas and getting the heck out of America. They hate America so much.
Yeah, well, look, I love the idea of water cannons. I wholeheartedly support and endorse water cannons. Now, in some totalitarian regimes, it's not just water. They'll also put some sort of irritant in that, and that becomes like a chemical warfare issue. Then you got problems with the Geneva Convention and human rights and blah, 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 blah. So probably just got to stick with water. And we might have to make it like Evian water or something other than tap water. Put spring water in it or something, so it's good water, not toilet water. Speaking about, did you guys see the picture of the dude? I put the picture up on our Facebook page, the WDBO Facebook page. Meet 39-year-old Atta Othman. Othman is one of the anti-Israeli protesters at the University of South Florida. He was arrested for possession of a firearm on school property. Now, I posted the picture for a couple of reasons. One, because this guy was arrested for having a gun on school property. But what really blew my mind is that the guy's 39 years old. Now, by that, there's two different ways my mind is blown at this. One, he's 39. This guy is not a student. He's 39 years old. But when you see his mugshot, I don't understand how that guy's 39. That guy has had a very rough 39 years because he looks easily like he is 69 or 79. I am vexed. If that's what 39 looks like, I am just vexed at this. Check out the picture if you want to. It's on the WDBO Facebook page. That and there's also a picture there on the WDBO Facebook page at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. So our very first president of the United States of America, the anti-Israeli protesters there have completely defaced the statue of George Washington. And I don't know what the garment is called that he's got wrapped around his head and face. What is that Yasser Arafat garment around the neck called? I don't know what that's called, but it's that garment wrapped around George Washington's face and head so that only his eyes peek through. He's got a cape on now, a cape on, not a capon. He's wearing a cape, but the cape is a Palestinian flag. And then he's got anti-Israeli, pro-Palestinian stickers all over the statue of our very first president. I'm going to play a little bit of Newsmax here. Newsmax just a minute ago aired this. Donald Trump, after his day in court today, is visiting with firemen in New York City.
Real quick, Trump's just outside of a fire station after leaving court. He's got pizza for the guys. This is typical Trump. Let's poke in and see what he's up to right there.
So they have it. The president is just there meeting firefighters. That garment, our chief research head says it's called a kufaya. A kufaya is what that garment is called, evidently. All right, so President Trump is handing out pizzas in New York City to firefighters there. This as another Boeing whistleblower is dead. Now, this is the second Boeing whistleblower to die in 2 months. And I'm going to share with you from the Seattle Times. I'm sure you know that Seattle is the home of Boeing, Washington State, more specifically. Joshua Dean, a former quality auditor at Boeing supplier Spirit Aerosystems and one of the first whistleblowers to allege that Spirit Aerosystems leadership had ignored manufacturing defects on the 737 MAX, died Tuesday morning after a struggle with a sudden, fast-spreading infection. Known as Josh, Dean lived in Wichita, Kansas, where Spirit is based. He was 45 years old and had been in good health and was noted for having a healthy lifestyle. His aunt, Carol, said he died after 2 weeks in critical condition. A Spirit spokesperson says, our thoughts are with Josh Dean's family. This sudden loss is stunning news here and for his loved ones. What a nice, heartfelt comment from Spirit Aerosystems. Dean had given a deposition in a Spirit shareholder lawsuit and had filed a complaint with the Federal Aviation Administration alleging serious and gross misconduct by senior quality management of the 737 production line at Spirit. Spirit Aerosystems makes the fuselage for the 737 MAX. They basically build the passenger compartment of the plane. They don't build the wings, they build the fuselage. Spirit fired Dean in April 2023 after he filed a complaint with the Department of Labor alleging that his termination was in retaliation for raising concerns related to aviation safety. Well, dude, we can't have people on staff of Spirit Aerosystems that are critical of Spirit Aerosystems safety. Come on, of course we're going to fire you for that. Aunt Carol said that Dean had become ill and went to the hospital because he was having trouble breathing about 2 weeks ago. He was intubated and developed pneumonia and then a serious bacterial infection, MRSA. His condition deteriorated rapidly. He was airlifted from Wichita to a hospital in Oklahoma City. There he was put on an ECMO machine, which circulates and oxygenates a patient's blood outside the body, taking over heart and lung function when a patient's organs don't work on their own. His mother posted a message Friday on Facebook relating all these details and saying that Dean was fighting for his life. He was also heavily sedated and put on dialysis. A CT scan indicated that he had suffered a stroke. By the end, doctors were considering amputating both hands and feet. It was brutal what he went through, Aunt Carol says. Heartbreaking. Now, Dean was represented by a law firm in South Carolina that also happened to represent Boeing whistleblower Mitch Barnett. You'll recall that Barnett was found dead in a quote-unquote suicide in March. He was in the midst of giving depositions alleging Boeing retaliated against him for complaints about quality lapses when he was found dead from a gunshot wound in Charleston, South Carolina, where Boeing has its 787 manufacturing facility. The Charleston County Coroner's Office reports that Barnett's death appeared to be from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, yet almost 2 months later, the police investigation into his death is still ongoing. Brian Knowles, one of Dean's lawyers, says he didn't want to speculate about the close timing and circumstances of the two deaths. But he says whistleblowers are needed. They bring to light wrongdoing and corruption in the interests of society. It takes a lot of courage to stand up. It's difficult, a difficult set of circumstances. Our thoughts are now with John's family and Josh's family. So the attorney says he's not going to speculate about the close timing and circumstances of the two deaths. So let me do that. I'm happy to speculate. My wife, Sweet Ronnie Sue, and I have a regular discussion about whether or not we believe in coincidences. And I generally do not believe in coincidences. I don't want to go, I don't want to alienate anybody, but oftentimes when a coincidence happens, I think it's a religious thing. I mean, I see things and I'm like, okay, that's a wink there from God. Cool, appreciate it. Now, in this particular case, this is a different kind of coincidence. One time, a single instance of a Boeing whistleblower dying is an aberration. It's an anomaly. 2 Boeing whistleblowers dying in 2 months is a pattern. It's no longer an aberration. It's a pattern. Boeing is one of America's, if not America's, biggest defense contractor. Boeing makes trillions of dollars making weapons for the United States government. And I have seen too much. I have read too many news stories. I have reported too many news stories to believe in coincidences in this scenario. What kind of message do you think this sends to anybody else that works at Boeing and has grave concerns about Boeing jets? Keep in mind, not one but two Boeing airliners crashed, killing every single person on board because of defects in their 737 MAXs. They've got trillions of dollars on the line here. You think that Boeing or the United States government is going to let two whistleblowers stand in the way of this relationship between weapon builders and weapon users? All right, so I have officially become a wackadoo. I'm the crazy guy on the radio with the conspiracy theories. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it. I don't buy this. If for no other reason, just because of the message it sends to anybody else who would think about becoming a whistleblower. Imagine, put on the shoes right now that you work at a Boeing manufacturing facility and you have firsthand information. You have seen it. You have heard it for yourself. You know that company is building dangerous jets. Are you going to come forward? 844-580-WDBO or hit me up. Open mic, WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. News, weather, traffic, all the things you want on your drive home. Plus, Joe Kelley being, well, Joe Kelley. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
All right, so I looked it up. Boeing is the third largest defense contractor for the United States government. Boeing had, in 2023, $21.8 million worth of contracts. The second biggest defense contractor is Raytheon Technologies Corporation. They're now known as RTX. They have $27.8 million in contracts. The biggest defense contractor is Lockheed Martin. They have $68.5 million worth of contracts. And, of course, we have a big Lockheed Martin employment group right here in Orlando. I don't know if you all know this, but where they're building the new Epic Universe, the new Universal theme park, the Epic Universe, literally right next door to that is a Lockheed Martin facility where they build and design weapons, and there are frequent helicopter launches from there. I don't know if they make helicopters there, but these aren't the tourist helicopters that we see in that district. These are military and government helicopters, but they also they make missiles at Lockheed Martin. I don't know if they make exactly what they make there at the Orlando facility. I don't know. I know several people who work there. I just never ask them what they build, what they design, what they make. I assume that they're not allowed to tell me what they do. I lived in Albuquerque for a while, and Albuquerque is home to a place called Sandia Labs. If you go way back to the Reagan administration, when Ronald Reagan was talking about Star Wars, which was a space-based laser system that could detect and destroy intercontinental ballistic missiles, that whole science development project took place at Sandia Labs. And if you've ever been to Albuquerque, this is just one of the coolest things you'll ever see. But there's, it's the high desert, and there is this mountainside there, and when the sun hits it just right, you'll see this reflection off of these giant steel doors that lead into the mountain. And that is one of the few locations in the United States that it goes deep underground. And it's one of the places where our government can operate in the event of a nuclear war. Of course, that's not as big a deal today, though it's getting a bigger deal than it was back during the Cold War era. But I had a buddy whose dad worked at Sandia Labs, and he said, I can only tell you this, because he asked his dad, Dad, what do you do? And his dad wouldn't tell him what he did. He said, but have you seen the movie Star Wars? And the kid goes, yeah. And he goes, we're not far from it. That was the only thing he ever said about what they do at Sandia Labs. It's pretty remarkable.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, from the Bogan Munz & Munz WDBO Traffic Center. Auto accident? Choose Bogan Munz & Munz.
Seeing heavy delays into downtown, starting at Fairbanks all the way to the 408 eastbound, and then you're on and off the brakes there past Crystal Lake, and then again to Goldenrod. We still have that multi-vehicle crash on the Turnpike southbound after Hancock Road on the right shoulder, but seeing big delays on the Turnpike there. And that big rig in a car that got together on Aloma westbound. They're still trying to get that big rig out of there. All westbound lanes of Aloma are closed. Save money at Refresh Computers, Central Florida's budget computer store. Visit refreshcomputers.net or call 407-478-8200 for the latest details. From the WDBO Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. From the jazz age to the information age, WDBO has been there. Join us in saluting a century of broadcasting excellence. Happy 100th WDBO, the soundtrack to Orlando's history.
So a second Boeing whistleblower is dead in the last 2 months, which certainly does not make you want to step up and be a whistleblower for against Boeing. Boeing has 171,000 employees. They have an operating income of $773 million. They have revenue of $77 billion. Total equity of $17 billion. Total assets of $137 billion. They have billions of dollars of contracts with the U.S. government. It to me is just not plausible that two Boeing whistleblowers are dead in 2 months at a time in which Boeing is licking their financial wounds from two terribly fatal airliner crashes. I mean, we have not had a U.S. airliner crash of any significance since 9/11/2001. And then suddenly we have two 737 MAX airlines fall out of the sky. And those weren't even in America. Those don't fall under the classification of American airline crashes. But it's Boeing Airlines, Boeing's planes, that did the crashing there.
Yeah, I'm a Boeing employee and I'd like to come forward.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, who's going to want to come forward now? Who wants to be the next Boeing whistleblower? By the way, we were talking about Lockheed Martin, which has a couple of facilities here in the Orlando area, and I was spitballing at what they do there behind the closed doors. And I've got a buddy of mine who recently worked there until recently. I think he just retired. But he says it's missile and fire control. They build flight controls for various military aircraft and ... of course, missiles. Yes. They do other things. In the plant on the other side of town is information systems and software updates. He said, when I worked there, they built commercial conveyor systems for the post office. Yeah. So that's still technically a government contract, right? We're for the post office. Paul, you have something? No? Okay. I heard you there. All right. So that's the latest then from Boeing. Do you guys happen to remember, oh gosh, what was it? Hang on. It was yesterday at this time. Do you remember yesterday at this time? And we were talking about the Rotten Tomatoes list of the top 300 movies. And remember how we were all kind of startled at the number one movie? Do you remember what the number one movie was?
L.A. Confidential.
There you go.
So last night I went home and, as I do, and I went home and because I think I'd mentioned to Greg, I was like, man, I remember seeing L.A. Confidential on one of the streaming platforms. It is on Netflix. And so I watched it last night. And as I was watching, I kept thinking, I feel like I've seen this before, because it did come out like in 1997. So I really thought I had seen it before. I don't understand why it's number one. I don't. It was a good movie. It's a good movie. It's got Kim Basinger and the guy from Gladiator and the guy from the Pig movie. Do you remember the Pig movie? Cromwell, is that his name? James Cromwell. That's the actor.
Yeah,
James
from
Cromwell.
Babe.
Babe.
James Cromwell
Yeah,
from
Babe was the Pig movie.
Addle do Pig.
That's right. James Cromwell's great. By the way, he's the bad guy. Yeah, I know. Spoiler alert, but the movie came out in 97. If you don't know that yet, then I don't know how to break it to you that Luke Skywalker's dad is, he's Darth Vader. Technically, no! He is. It's sad. It's very sad, but it is true. What is the statute of limitations for when we can spoil movies and TV series and stuff? I mean, I would think, these days after a year, the secret's out, right? By the way, the movie coming out this weekend is Fall Guy, which technically is a reboot of a TV series that starred Lee Majors. Fall Guy was a TV series like on CBS back in the, I don't know, when was Lee Majors a thing? The 1970s, 80s, early 80s. But it was about a stuntman. And so Fall Guy is a reboot of sorts of that. I got to say, it's getting absolutely fantastic reviews, which makes me very, very happy to hear. It's got Ryan Gosling and
Emily Blunt.
Thank you.
I was going to say that girl from that thing.
I would have not. I know. I was going to say she was in Oppenheimer.
This is why you don't do entertainment news a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Because I have to have discussions with a consultant like every other week, and all he ever criticizes me on is, Joe, when you do that thing where you don't know the actor's name, that's really hard to listen to. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll stop doing that then.
Hey, that's when you tell them, that's kind of my thing.
That's right.
It's kind of my catchphase,
All right.
The guy from the thing.
All right, so let's segue into, let's talk about how people don't trust the media. Now, I'm of multiple minds on this because, I am the media. We are the media. And I would argue also that when they do studies on the media, I really think they got to be more specific on the studies because they literally ask the question about, do you trust the media? Technically, these days, everyone is in the media. Sure, it's social media, but everybody is in the media. I mean, everybody's got their own YouTube channels. Anybody can be a reporter. We even have a name for it. UGC. We call it UGC in the business. User-generated content. Because anyone, anywhere is a reporter. A citizen journalist, civilian journalist.
Don't you think that it's clouding the public opinion of what
Absolutely.
is actually news or what is actually opinion? And
Absolutely.
They take opinion as fact sometimes.
Absolutely.
And that's scary.
Totally agree. Absolutely. That and as so now 8 in 10 Americans don't trust the media to report the facts. 8 in 10. Holy smokes, that's terrible. That is really, really bad. 8 out of 10 Americans don't trust the media to report the facts. And yes, Paul, totally I think that part of that is the onset of peripheral media. Now, that having been said, the mainstream media is hella problematic. I mean, the mainstream media, let's just deal with the Russian collusion hoax. The mainstream media for 2.5 years breathlessly reported that Russian agents were pulling the strings on the U.S. presidential election and on Donald Trump personally. How many times did we have to hear about the tape? And you know what tape I'm talking about. The tape that didn't exist. So the mainstream, the real media, the 3-letter media, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, I mean, that to me is the mainstream media. And then you've got radio and TV stations and newspapers around the country, many of whom are part of large conglomerates. There are very few mom, pa radio and TV stations anymore. But then you have countless people on YouTube, countless people on TikTok, countless people on Facebook, Instagram, Rumble, Truth Social, X. And they fall under the category of media. And a whole lot of them are ding-dongs. A lot are ding-dongs. And so I would ask the question, what can the media do better to reverse this plunge in trust in the media? But honestly, I don't know how one would even define the media these days. Because a lot of people...
Joe, is it about money? Because if you are a left-leaning or right-leaning media, quote-unquote, outlet, you don't want to tick off your base. And so you will report things with a skew in order to keep your base, to keep your ratings, and make money.
So, yes, everything is about money.
The more center you go, the more people you tick off on each side or whatever, and they may not trust you anymore because they're not following what you believe. And they end up losing ratings and losing money, and then they have to do the extremes by going one way or the other to make that money. But it's all about business.
That's funny you say that. I was just reading one of our radio trade magazines a couple days ago, and there was a piece about a guy that kind of did what I did, and that is he went from being a news host on a morning show, it's just a pure news show, and then they added an extra hour to the morning show, but they didn't want to do news there. They said, okay, start being a talk host. And the guy started out by saying, well, I want to be fair. I want to be in the middle. And Paul, you're spot on. If you try to straddle the middle, you will alienate both sides. Because that's what I try to do, is I try to straddle the middle. And I don't mean that artificially. I mean, I am a registered Republican. I am a fiscal conservative. I am a social libertarian. I'm not a cookie cutter. I'm a unique person with what I think are well thought out beliefs on issues of the day. But invariably, as I express those, I hear in my head the reaction from listeners of, oh, you're a dirty commie, or you're a Trump, MAGA, or you're a never Trumper, or, it's just we're so bitterly divided these days. The last thing that I would want to watch, and this is why I mentioned in the last hour, if you're sitting around watching cable news all day, I know a grandpa. I'm not going to identify him, but I know a grandpa, long retired, and he basically just props in front of a TV all day, and it's on Newsmax all day. And, that is, just like with any other news channel, it's propaganda. It's propaganda, and you're being force-fed propaganda all day long. Is it any wonder that we are so divided as a nation? And then on the other side, people sit and watch MSNBC all day. It's absolute propaganda. Is it any wonder that people don't trust the media? Is it any wonder that we are so divided as a nation? And what's really interesting is the trust in the media peaked in the 1970s. That was when the last time that there was the highest trust in the media, and it was something like 70% or so, 75% of Americans trusted in the media, and it's been a steady decline since that time. It started a rapid decline in 2018. Now, 2018 was the middle of the Trump administration. It was when we saw the character assassination of Brett Kavanaugh, who was accused of being a gang rapist. And then we saw the years-long investigation of Donald Trump as a Russian, as a Kremlin agent. And the media gets what it deserves in scenarios like that. The same news organizations that for 2.5 years breathlessly reported about the Russian collusion hoax never once rectified that. They never once came on and said, wow, we really got that story wrong. They never had a a coming to Jesus meeting with their viewers, with their users, saying, we really screwed that up, and we're gonna strive to do better next time. They never did. They just moved on. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. A gay group calls on Hollywood to have even more gay characters. I'll unpack that for you coming up in a moment. Stay with us here. You're listening to The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelley. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Oh my gosh, I've got such exciting news. You guys are going to be so thrilled to hear this. All right. Here, speaking about the media. So I'm just going to play a couple seconds here for you. This just a short time ago from CNN.
Tonight, Iran's offer to Americans. One of the country's oldest colleges, Shiraz University, is offering scholarships to U.S. college students who have been expelled for protesting on college campuses.
Squee! Is that not exciting? Oh my gosh, this is great. So for all of these ding-dongs, these anti-Israeli, quote-unquote, pro-Palestinian protesters on college campuses that are getting expelled from schools, they can now move to Tehran to go attend on full scholarship a school in Iran. Oh yes, for the LGBTQ drag queens that are protesting, that are having little children chant free Palestine and everything else like that. This is so exciting. I can't wait for them to take up Iran on the offer to go to school there. Free ride scholarship, y'all. Do you know how hard it is to get a full ride scholarship? I'm sure they've got a good educational program there. You're not going to be able to have all the same freedoms to protest and stuff like you do in the United States. I mean, they'll kill you, but you're going to get everything else that you want. This is what a brilliant move by Iran to offer them scholarship. And you know full well that one, at least, of these ding-dongs is going to take them up on the offer. I remember reading a story a couple years ago that there was this couple, a man and a woman. They're like, oh, peace and love, and we believe in peace and love, and we're going to ride our bikes across. And I don't remember where it was at the time, Afghanistan or something like that, Iraq, Iran. I don't remember which it was. And they were killed within like a week of entering the country. Oh, peace and love. Yeah, you know what? You don't understand the enemy. You don't understand the opposition. You don't understand evil. Peace and love. Yeah, that's fine. That's the good side. But there's the other side. The enemy exists. Evil exists. And they are out there. All right, coming up next here, I mentioned it for this segment, my fault, but I'll have it for you next segment. As the GLAAD, Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, thinks there aren't enough gay people on TV. I bet it's the GLAAD people that are also protesting on college campuses right now. So they don't think there's enough gay people on TV, and they want to make it a lot gayer. I'll unpack that for you coming up next. Stay with us.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. For 100 years, we've been your voice, your source, your heartbeat. From the roaring 20s to the digital age, we've been there for it all. Happy 100th anniversary, WDBO, where history and headlines meet.
Honestly, if y'all aren't using AI, you're missing out. I don't use AI here at work on work computers because we are strictly forbidden from using AI at work on work computers. I was just thinking about something I did yesterday at home on a non-work computer. Or a non-work phone, because I have lots of non-work phones and non-work computers. I can't remember the last time I owned a home computer. It has been some time. I mean, honestly, phones have replaced most of that anyway, right?
Well, it has.
Do you have a computer?
For the most part.
Raise your hand if you have a computer at home. Oh, all three of you guys do.
I have 4 screens in front of me right now.
Okay, that makes sense. You're working from home, so yeah, that makes sense. My wife has a home computer with multiple screens.
But I have a laptop that I take with me everywhere. That's that's my home computer.
Yeah. All right, so LGBTQ characters in Hollywood TV fell more than 20% during the 2023-2024 season. And now the LGBTQ activist group GLAAD, Gay and Lesbian Alliance. No, hang on. GLAAD. Anyhow, what does it stand for? I don't want to be like, Paul, what does that stand for again?
I don't know
Gay
the
and
exact.
Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. Is that what it is?
It's GLAAD?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to ask Google. Anyhow, that's not the point. So don't get sidetracked again today. We had that episode yesterday. We're going to do a different episode today.
That was the best show we had in months,
I don't know. If you missed yesterday's show, we did pull the video from it and cut down an hour and 2 hours. 2 hours where the wheels absolutely came off the show yesterday. That's not something that happens a lot. It's pretty rare that the wheels just come off the show. But we boiled it down to the 8 minutes that encompassed the disaster that was yesterday's show. So if you want to see the video, it's on my Facebook page. It's on the WDBO Facebook page. It's on everybody's Facebook page right now. But if you want, it's 8 minutes, and it I don't know. I thought it was hilarious. I watched it and I laughed my tush off. But I don't know if I laughed because I know us or if I laughed because it was funny. Because maybe it wasn't funny to people who don't know us. Maybe it's only funny to us because we know us. You see what I'm saying?
I like that you don't think the disaster started from the very beginning when you spilled your water everywhere.
I forgot about that part.
That's true, because then you said, go ahead and just fill some time. God. And you know us, we're just going to go.
I forgot about that. I fast-forwarded past the whole first hour. I totally forgot about that. And
the station engineers didn't.
And by the way,
the station engineers didn't fast-forward past that part. They saw every bit of it.
Hang on, if there's any engineers that are listening right now, what Greg just said about spilling water in the studio.
Oh, never happened. I'm sorry.
Did not.
That was AI. That was all
did
AI.
not happen.
It's theater of the mind, people. We're just kind of making believe.
And I literally have this cup that is, why is it not working now? Oh my gosh, it stopped working. I have this cup that's like a weeble wobble and you can't knock it over. Oh, golly.
He did it again. I will say they did this with us in the helicopter too. When we're flying in the helicopter, somebody had spilled water onto the board in the helicopter, and they said you can no longer bring a drink in the helicopter, and they went out and they purchased bottles for us, all these bottles that were completely sealed. They said, these you can take in the helicopter. Wouldn't you know it, after like 1 week, one of the people in the helicopter spilled that bottle all over the board again.
I don't understand, because this is literally designed. This is why I bought it. It's designed to not spill, to not knock over. It sticks to the bottom.
Look at this indestructible ship I've built. Here comes an iceberg.
The Titanic, yeah. Okay, we're off the rails again.
Oh, no. Okay. Everybody stop. Take a deep breath. Okay. So,
GLAAD.
Yes, they are concerned that there aren't enough gay characters in movies and TV shows coming out of entertainment. They issued a statement asking Hollywood to redirect and add more gayness to shows. They tallied all the characters and shows from the 2023-2024 season and found that there were 468 LGBTQ characters. That's down from 596 the year before. So that's a 21% drop from the last season. So network TV and motion picture companies, y'all need to ramp up the gayness. It's not gay enough. You can let me know your thoughts. Speaking about Boeing, so Laurel, you're reporting on this. The Boeing Starliner spacecraft is going to take off, May 6th, next week. May 6th.
Right.
And this is going to be the first time that this is going to be a crewed mission. This will be the first crewed use. And crewed, that's CREWED, not CRUDE. We used to call it manned missions, but we don't call it manned missions anymore because we're woke, and we call it crewed missions now. So this will be the first time that the Boeing Starliner has had humans in the vehicle at launch time. And the launch is Monday night. It has an instantaneous launch window, which means if it doesn't launch at 10:34 p.m. exactly, then it is not going to launch. Does anybody know why it has to launch at exactly 10:34 p.m. Monday?
Monday?
Comes down to two words. Orbital mechanics.
Oh, here I was thinking that they had to watch The Daily Show at 11 o'clock, and I was thinking Daily Show. Okay.
It comes down to orbital mechanics, and that is the shortest possible path from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station to the International Space Station. So if they don't launch at exactly 10:34, they will end up having to chase the ISS in orbit, and they don't want to chase it in orbit, so they launch it at that exact window. It's not the same when they launch the Falcon 9s with Starlink internet satellites. They've got a bigger window on that because they're spreading those things out over a pretty wide space, and they're not crewed or manned. So this will have two humans. This will be NASA astronaut Commander Barry Wilmore and Suni Williams. Sunita, and I'm sorry for asking. Is that a woman? Sunita? That sounds like a woman's name, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. The Starliner can fit up to 7 crew members. For NASA missions, it'll carry between 4 to 5 people. And again, this is Boeing's. This is yet another project that Boeing has with the federal government of the United States. And we have 2 Boeing whistleblowers that are oddly dead. We can't figure out how they keep dying. Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. 844-580-WDBO. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. We do have a launch tonight, too. Tonight is going to be a Starlink internet satellite launch. That'll be this evening at, I think, 9:49 p.m. is what time that launch is tonight, if you want to check that out. So step outside around 9:49 and look towards the east. You should see a big bright light going up in the sky. I'm Joe Kelley. You're listening to The Joe Kelley Show.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Check out the Joe Kelley Show podcast wherever you get your podcasts. I'll tell you, one of the things that I love about our podcast is not only are there a lot of people listening, but they're listening for a long period of time. We are able to look at those metrics, the data, and it shows that. Not that we compete or anything, but so Scott Inez has a podcast. It's fantastic, and I hope you listen to it. Scott's podcast is the most listened to podcast on WDBO, but my podcast is the longest listened to podcast on WDBO. So there's actually something in radio that we call CUME versus TSL. CUME is short for cumulative, and TSL stands for time spent listening. So Scott wins the CUME. He's got the most people tuning into his podcast, and I win in the TSL, time spent listening, in the podcast. And that is only interesting to people like Scott and me. So I don't know why I just shared all that. I'm very, very sorry for sharing.
I think we're going to take your advice, though, Joe. I think Greg and I are going to team up and call it Crossroads.
Yeah, you should. You guys are perfect for that.
I think we'll have our own. We'll do that and kick both of your butts. Let's try that.
Yeah, you could have a podcast called Crossroads where something and something meet. I guess in this case, where Greg and Paul meet. Okay. Crossroads.
Yeah, where Greg and Paul meet.
Where Greg meets Paul every day. I like that very
much.
much.
We've already got our theme song there, Joe.
Yes.
Thank you. That's it.
That was not me. that was so. I think that was Laurel. I'm pretty sure that was Laurel. All right. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Don't forget there'll be a launch later tonight. Some Starlink internet satellites. So look towards the east at about 9:49 p.m. or so. I know I'll be looking towards the east at about that time, though I'm quite likely to go fishing in about 5 or 6 minutes. So if you see me out at a lake, be sure and say hi. I'll be the guy not catching any fish. Thank you so much for being a part of the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.